Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, we can hear
So
you.
we'll start the session in another 2 minutes. So, Srini sir, shall we start the session?
Yeah, yeah, let's go ahead.
So, sorry for the initial delay. Um,
Abbas, you were having problems from presenting from your side itself?
Well, I uploaded the slides, so it should have shown up. Now, instead, there is an empty container on the top. So, the slides have got uploaded and converted, but they're just not showing up. I remember this issue was related to TLS, Let's Encrypt. But
Oh, okay.
if you have used it recently and you've not had this issue, then that's not the problem. But so someone can just check the logs or something.
You are now muted.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, just testing.
You're audible.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Abbas. Thank you for taking the backup plan and
No, no, no
putting it
problem.
through. Yeah.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
a free software business that provides support, services, and solutions for free software deployments. Deeproot GNU Linux builds mail servers and clusters, provides hosting and support for a variety of free software tools, and helps organizations of all sizes choose self-hosting for their infrastructure in general. As the founder of a one-person company called Mostly Harmless, Abbas experiments with and builds free and open source software hardware like hackable mechanical keyboards, self-hosted IoT solutions, and strategies for using and distributing software and hardware with freedom. Abbas is a member of the board of directors of the Free Software Foundation India and has been a participant in the community in India for many years. He advises colleges, government and organizations and startups on using, building and adopting free software as a way of life. With all your permission, I'd like to invite Abbas to the FOSS Entrepreneurship Forum. Over to you, Abbas.
Thank you, Anjali. Thank you, Shinisa, for having me. Glad to share my thoughts here. Just put on the video. Yeah. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be sharing a few perspectives on free software business. And I'll try to keep this session interactive so that all of you can enjoy it and we can have a lot of discussions. It doesn't just have to be a sort of a one-way thing. So let's jump right into it. The first thing, I have a couple of disclaimers. I have very strong opinions, and everything I will discuss would be based on those strong opinions. We all have them, I guess, and mine are built around this belief that all software should be free and all of us should be able to use free software and should be able to make that choice freely. And basically, free software is one of the necessary conditions for building a free society. And there are, of course, so many other aspects of a free society, but free software is one of them. So I'm not going to sort of define what free software is. I'm not going to talk about what are the advantages of free software vis-a-vis other things. I guess all of us are fairly aware of that, and we've been introduced to concepts of what is free software and licensing and so on. What I am going to talk about is the business aspect of things, and I'm not saying that I or our business has been very successful at doing what we do, but we've done a lot of very different and fun things over the past 21 years, and we've had varying degrees of success with it. And what I'd like to share is some of those insights, so that if any of you are running a business which is based around free software, or you're considering to run a business around free software, then you might find some nuggets of insight here. So the first thing we should talk about is, what is a business? So the reason, that's one of the most basic things, right? So I'm going to open a poll option here so that you can quickly vote for this. But let's try to understand what a business is. Is it a business where you threaten and coerce a customer into paying you? Do you trick a customer into paying you even against their will? Is it a business when the customer pays you for the value you provide them, or is it a business when you charitably offer the value gratis? So, well, I've listed few arbitrary options here, and like to take your opinions on that. So before we sort of try to define what a free software business is about and what might make sense when we run one, let's try to understand what we regard as a true business in the first place. So you will see a pop-up on your screens, and you could just choose A, B, C, D, any of those 4 options. So in some slides, I'll have some more options, so you'll see more things to choose there as well. Yeah, so almost half the people have voted. So I'll just publish the results. right? So most people have voted for C, and a few people have also voted for A. The first option. Now, I think this is something we should remember, and a lot of times when we say 1 or 3 or 2, we are thinking as customers, we're thinking as consumers, we are thinking as those who get affected by how a business, what sort of business we interact with, and how a business is run. And what I would like to request is that we remember these things when we run a business as well, right? So let's keep these things in mind. And let's now talk about what a free software business is. Now, a lot of people might say, a free software business is an oxymoron. How do you sell something that's free, isn't it? When we talk about free, as in free software, we're talking about the freedom which is embodied in the software. And hence, it's not really an oxymoron, because we're not the software is gratis. It could be gratis for that matter. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a business which provides free software to you. That doesn't mean that they can't sell it. So my counter question would be that if people can charge you for locking you in, for bonding you based on the software and the services they offer you, for non-negotiable contracts, surely someone would be ready to pay for freedom, right? So it's not really such an absurd thing to think about, that someone would want to pay for software that they could very well get free. We will look into what people pay for, actually. So that's not what we're discussing right now. But what I'm trying to define is what a free software business is. So there is a small one-page website I'd built many years back, freesoftware.business. It's just a single page which tries to very cleanly and in a very simple manner define what a free software business is, so that whenever we come across an occasion to explain about such a business to someone else who might not understand these things, we could point them there. And if you have suggestions on how to improve that page, we could do that as well. So this is often something that people say, that when it's how do you sell something which is free. But of course, what the difference of opinion we are having there is about what we mean by free. Are we talking about freedom? Or are we talking about the price? So this is how I define a free software business. It's an ethical combination of a business's desire for profit and a customer's desire for freedom. So there need not be a conflict there. Just because a business needs to generate revenue and earn a profit and offer services or products or solutions which they could charge for, that does not mean that it has a conflict with a consumer's or a customer's desire to be free. And that combination, that mix is what a free software business is, where you respect your users, you respect the users of that software, without that respect again having a negative impact on your ability to build a business on what you're trying to offer them. So this is how we could define a free software business. But then people could ask, what if the customer doesn't want or need or care about freedom, right? So we said customers' desire for freedom, and we know that when we try to promote or advocate free software, we use a variety of arguments about why freedom in software and technology is essential, and why we must choose free software as a student or as a developer or as an organization or as a university and so on. And of course, we use the freedom of the software as a very defining argument, but then there are so many other secondary arguments as well that we make when we try to advocate free software. But that doesn't mean that everyone is going to want freedom or care about it or need it. People might have other perspectives. They might look out for other things. And then if as a business, what we are trying to talk about is the freedom that we offer and how we try to build a business on top of that, maybe it will fall to deaf ears, because that's not what people are looking for, right? So then now we reach a stage where we are stuck, right? So if everyone doesn't necessarily care about freedom, then how can we offer it? And why would people want it? And why would they come to us? And what makes us relevant? So, well, I think we're going too fast. Let's go back to some basics. Let's try to understand some things about the business aspect so that we can come back to the free software aspect after that, right? Now, some of you or all of you might be interested in starting a business. So let's ask, the first question I want to ask you is that of why? Why would you want to start a business? Are you trying to solve a problem or scratch an itch? And you feel, a lot of other people might have the same problem and they might want to have it solved. So that's one of the reasons you want to start a business. A lot of times when we look at other business people, we look at a certain lifestyle. We want to live like that. So is that what we're looking for? Again, similar to the lifestyle, we might look at others' success in running a business and we might desire that as well. So, well, there's nothing wrong in that. We might be trying to replicate their success or their financial rewards. We might understand that, look, if I work for an organization as an employee, my financial rewards are limited to such and such segment. And but instead, if I was the owner of a business, as a business owner, I could earn a lot more money. And that is also a very good reason to start a business. And of course, there is the final thing. There's no other way to do it. If there is something I want to do, the only way I can do it is by starting a business. So if some of you are looking at doing this or have started a business, my question to you would be, what is it that why did you do that, or why would you do that? So think about it a little more. If you have, if you want to list out some other reasons, you could do that as well. So maybe you could vote for E. There's no other way to do it. I have to start a business. That's the only way I can do something that I want to do. So please take a moment to share what you feel about starting or running a business at all, and then we'll go to something else. So I'm trying to reach a point wherein the premise for running a free software business is very clear to us, and hence the reason why somebody else would want to enter into a sort of a exchange is also going to be clear. So 18 people have voted out of 32. So I'm just going to publish the results now. Let's see what happens. Okay, so most people have voted for B or D, which is one, the lifestyle of being able to be of being a business owner, and also the financial rewards. Okay, so well, none of these things are really. I'm not trying to push a specific judgment or opinion here. My point is, we all have our own reasons to start a business or run a business and sustain it, and it's our reason. So no one would actually have the ability to sort of comment on that. When I started Deeproot, way back in 2000, there is something that I wanted to do, and I felt the only way I could do it is by running a business. I didn't think there would be any other way to work on free software full time, so I would have voted for E. Okay, so this is why you would start a business. Now look at the what question. What would you offer? If you were to run a business, you would offer a product or a service. Are there other things that you might want to offer? Right. So now you could actually, if you want, you could unmute and say something. You could write it down in chat as well. Please feel free to do that. I'm trying to understand, if you were trying to run or start a business, what would you like to offer as a business? So a product is something, like a physical thing. It could also be a software product, but it could be something physical. You could be offering a service. You could be offering something else. I don't know what that something else is. So maybe you can write about that something else in chat. You could just vote for A or B otherwise. Please feel free to do that. So I guess, we are, there are a few people who voted C, so why don't you? Okay, that's a good thing, both product and a service. That's okay. So we'll move on. So we are sort of majorly split between products and services. That's fine. The next question I want to ask you is, why you? Why would someone want to do business with you? There could be so many reasons, so I'm trying to help you come up with what you think is your reason. Okay, so I don't have so many options here. I can only offer you up till E, but if you want to vote for F or G, you could as well put it in chat maybe. I didn't think that much when I was writing these points down. So, well, we all have our reasons for believing why someone should do business with us, right? We might feel that our product is excellent. We have something good, or we ourselves as people have something good to offer, and which is why someone should do business with us. It could be that they would do business with us because they know us, or they like us, or they want to support us. So there could be so many reasons. Again, I'm really not going to look at, we're not trying to figure out which is the best reason. What I'm trying to help you look at is, introspect and understand what is your perspective. It's not important for our discussion. But you should be clear when you're running a business as to why someone would want to do business with you. And this why, the question, the answer to this why question changes from customer to customer and business opportunity to opportunity. It's not that for every opportunity we are the best or the cheapest or the quickest or the closest or the most capable, right? That balance keeps changing based on what problem we are trying to solve. Now, on what basis do you think people make a choice? If somebody has to do business with you, on what basis would they make that choice? Do we think people are generally reasonable, and that is how they look at making a business choice? So if the most reasonable option is to choose a specific software or hardware or something else, they would choose because based on that. Do you think there is a trend and people choose something based on those trends, which is what I mean by fashion? Is it because they choose something based on the reputation that solution or product has, which means that if it's from a reputable company or what they feel is a reputable company, then they're more likely to enter into a transaction with it? Or do you feel that marketing is what plays a very important role, and or do you think it's referrals? So yes, it's a mix of all these things, but let's look at the most important of those. And again, depending upon what you think, that's depending on your perspective. If you feel that people are going to look at your reputation, or they're going to look at trends, or they're going to look at referrals to decide, so you might want to focus on those aspects, right? If you think people take reasonable decisions, then you might be able to pitch to them with logic. You might be able to make a logical pitch. You might be able to try to convince them with, say, science behind your product or service or something like that. But if you feel that the people's decisions or organizations' decisions are based on trends in the industry or so on, then well, if you're doing something that is not trendy, then it might be tough for you to make an impact. But again, the reason I am posing this question is not because it has a definite answer, but because unless we think about how the psychology of a consumer is, it's going to be tough for us to figure out what to do in the market or what to do as a business, right? And I'm not saying again that these are static things. People use all or some of these at different instances. So it's not that they're always going to choose the same thing. So now we come back to what we were discussing earlier. We said, what if customers don't want or need or care about freedom? Then what is the relevance of a free software business? How do you make a space for yourself or for your offering, which is free software based, if that's not what people are looking at? Well, I have a different way of looking at it. The freedom in the code manifests itself in our life in very diverse ways. It's not that the free software itself is the most important aspect. That is, but there are very very large side effects of that. People might not understand that those side effects are because of software freedom. They might look at it in so many other ways, but there are side effects, and they might actually care about those side effects. So if you know that people care about self-reliance, or they care about their right to repair something, and that could be software or hardware. Unless I have the source code, I cannot fix hardware or software, right? So how can I repair something? But if that is what my value system says, then I'm indirectly voting for free software, isn't it? The right to copy and share something. A lot of products and software and hardware, they don't give you those rights. And if those rights are important to you as a consumer, then the next decision you might make is to choose something which is free, something which gives you that liberty to copy and share, right? Or the liberty to study and learn something. Again, if I don't have the opportunity to learn, if I don't have access to the knowledge which I need to learn something or to study something, then I cannot learn about it. I cannot study, I cannot build my own skills or competency in that. So if that is what is important to me, then again, free software is very relevant, right? If I want to always be able to make choices, that I should not be tied down to a specific vendor or a specific service provider or a specific group of people, and I should be able to freely choose who I want to work with. Indirectly, I'm talking about the freedom that we get when we employ free software for our work. So these are, very positive side effects. These are things that people care about, right? So we might not be able to, or we might not have to pitch about the philosophy of software freedom. We don't have to be idealistic all the time. Not everyone cares about ideology in the same way. Not everyone has the patience to listen to us when we might be able to, when we might, have an opportunity to tell them these things. But they might appreciate, we might appreciate the side effects of freedom based on what problem they need to be solved. So we have to figure out how to appeal to them. So if I'm trying to talk to a college, or if I'm talking to a government institution, or if I'm talking to a corporate or a non-profit, or so there are various types of organizations. My pitch to them would be different after I understand what problem they want to solve, what their priorities are, which are the most important priorities, what are they going to give value to, what are they looking at. They might look at, I want to solve the problem quickly, or I want to solve the problem at a very low cost, or I want to solve the problem now, but in future I might want to do something else, and hence I want to retain that ability to make a different choice in future. So the point is, if once you understand what people want, you can figure out how to appeal to them, and that challenge is there, and that's where our creativity comes in. As a business, we always have to be creative in terms of how we put across our value proposition to someone else. Why should they choose us? We can try to be reasonable, or we can try to show that we are trendy, and whatever else we feel they might pay attention to. But that is something that we have to judge and adapt with on the fly, right? We might not know those things in advance. So I'm not saying that just because we are talking about free software and we're talking about these sort of positive values, we have to go down a philosophical, idealistic route to try to explain these things to people. And as all of you might already understand, not everyone wants to think in these terms or even go into discussions about these terms. It takes a lot of energy and time and effort. Right? But if that's about us. Running a business is not just about the technology or the software which drives running a technology-based business. There are so many aspects of a business which are non-technical in nature, and those skills are also skills that we have to build if we want to sustain that business. Otherwise, we might have an excellent offering, but if we can't put across the value of that offering to people who might benefit from it, they cannot choose it. They cannot avail themselves of that offering, right? So free software business is not about which problem we solve. It's not about that we can only do these sort of things with free software. It's not about that. It's about the means and methods of solving a problem. It's a framework of that sort. It's the ingredients which go into solving a problem. So if I give you salt and rice and turmeric and a cooker and gas, and I say now make something, there are probably so many different dishes that we can cook out of just those ingredients, right? It's not that those ingredients can only be mixed in one specific way to make one specific dish, food item. So free software is like that. It's the mean and the method of solving the problem. It's not about which problem can be solved. Counter question: do you think there are problems which are only solved better using proprietary software? Well, if they can be solved with software at all, why not free software? Finally, it doesn't matter. The license of the software doesn't matter. How does it matter whether the license of the software is free software license or not? If you can solve the problem in software or hardware, then you might as well solve it with free software or even free and open source hardware. So this is a very important distinction. A lot of times, we limit ourselves into thinking about what we can do as a business because we feel that you can only do certain things as a free software business. I don't think that's true. Don't limit yourself to what might be a popular discourse about what you can do as a free software business. It's not about which problems you can solve or which type of markets you can cater to. If you understand the market, if you understand the solution that needs to be provided or the problem that needs to be solved, and you're good at solving that problem, or you feel you can be good at it, that's all that's needed, right? And then a lot of us might feel that sharing knowledge and source code makes us less competitive, right? It's not, so if you look at traditional business theory, they talk about building barrier to entry, which means that if I'm going to try to create a market for my product or service, I'm definitely going to find competition in the market. And if others can do what I'm doing with equal ease, then the competition is tough, and it might not be very easy for me to run my business. So what you learn and read about is that, well, you have to build sufficient barriers to entry for others who compete with you so that they cannot very easily do what you are doing or the way you're doing it. So when we talk about a free software business, the means, the tools are common. Everyone has exactly the same thing. They have the same operating system, the same system software, the same application software, the same web servers, databases, application tools. Everything is the same. There is no real barrier to entry, right? I mean, you could look at it in the sense that, look, everyone does not have the skill. That's true, but that does not mean that people cannot build that skill, right? So there is no real barrier to entry, and that's a good thing, because that means that there is a sort of a level playing field. It's really a very fair market, right? So what I'm trying to show you here is a very indirect way of sort of answering this question. I feel this is a misconception. And when you start running a business, a free software business or a business around free software, you will encounter a lot of people who will try to challenge you with this thing, saying that, look, you cannot release everything. You cannot do everything. Everything that you do cannot be free software or built around free software. Or you should not share all the knowledge with your customer. You should keep something with you, otherwise, why will they continue to do business with you and so on. My view is that I don't think that's true. I would encourage you to experiment with this on your own and see what happens when you don't limit the knowledge you share or the source code you share and so on. So when we had released our mail server under the GPL in 2006, these are some of the mails that we got. So Kenneth Gonzalez was a part of the AUKBC Research Center. So he had posted this message on the mailing list. And Professor Satish Anigeri from BBB College, he was in BBB at that time, he had written this mail to us. You can check out, in fact, all of these things on a website I built last year on our company's 20th anniversary. But what I'm trying to share is that, look, in 2004, we had a lot of small and large customers. We were trying to build hardware. This is what our product looked like. We had actually released every piece of code under the GPL, and it did not make it more difficult for us to do business at all. It did not make us any less effective in our ability to do business or in our ability to reach out. We've not had any customer who said, look, I can download and use this freely. Why should I pay you for it? Because they are not really paying us for access to the product or the source code or the service, and it takes time for people to understand that, because all along they have been paying for access, just the ability to access a particular product or a service. If you don't pay, you don't get access to it. Well, with free software, it doesn't remain, the things don't remain like that. The tools, you have access to everything without even asking for it. And by paying money, you might not really get any more access unless there is a proprietary component there. So now, how does it affect your ability to build a business there? Well, not really. It doesn't really have that effect. And that's what I'm trying to say. Of course, sustaining your product, sustaining your project, free software project, continuing to maintain that, those are separate problems. You need people, you need motivation, you need resources to do it. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about the competition aspect. I'm talking about the aspect of being relevant in a specific business domain. That is what I'm saying does not get diminished just because you share knowledge and source code with your customers and the community and everyone else. So if you want to read some more of this, you could check out what we had been doing. Now let's go back to something that I posed a few minutes back. Are there problems that are solved better via free software? Conversely, are there solutions that are better built as proprietary software? Now, I have sprinkled a very wide variety of screenshots and web pages and all sorts of things. What I was trying to do, it might not be easy to read what's there, but what I was trying to do is sort of chart out a timeline and a list of every possible, not every possible, but almost all the great diversity of solutions that we have built for customers. Some of these have been our attempts to building products. Some of these have been custom software solutions we built for customers. Some of these have been pure services, but then you have to market services as well. Some of these are more ideological pitches, like those to colleges and so on. I'm trying to show you that there is a very wide expanse. It's not that there are certain problems that are solved better with free software. I will never say that there are some tools which should always be proprietary software. Everything can be free software. We have never encountered a situation where we could, we might not have a solution for that customer's problem, but and the customer might not have the time or the patience to invest into building a solution, with us. But that does not mean that a solution could not be built or it's impossible to build a solution. But maybe there are other parameters which are sort of impossible. Maybe the time they have for building it is just impractical, or the sort of budgets they have are impractical. And so be it. You're not able to build it. Somebody else has something that somebody else could be a proprietary software solution as well. At the moment, I can't do anything about it. If I had resources, if I had technical resources, if I had time that I need to work on it, I'm sure something could be built or assembled out of combining multiple free software tools together. So it's never that. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is that you should never think that certain things cannot be done. You should never think that just because there is a gap in the free software ecosystem, there are certain things which don't exist or that are not there yet, that they cannot be there. Of course, we might not, like I said earlier, we might not have the ability to build those things, but that does not mean they cannot be done. If there is a problem that people want to solve, there is a way to build a solution for that problem as well. So keep this in mind. Don't limit yourself, and don't limit what you pitch. I mean, of course, when I talk about what I do, I say I'm a generalist, because the basis of whatever we do is free software. But do we focus on anything specific? Well, we do focus on a few domains because we are good at them, and we know we can offer quick solutions to customers at a reasonable price. But if customers come up with a very unique requirement, and they had, they could devote time and money to solving the problem, we would not really say no to it, right? Okay, now let's look at another. So I'm going to zoom into a few of these screenshots, specifically a list of solutions. Now, this is a list of solutions we had. We had built a sort of a map that we were trying to pitch to universities and colleges, saying that, look, this is all the sort of things that you need in a college or university campus. All of those things can be built with free software. Well, you're just not making the choice. If you want to have everything in your control, if you want to create all the competency that you can ever need on campus inside the university, free software is one of the only ways of doing that. Otherwise, you will be sort of chained to proprietary software and hardware vendors who don't really have an interest in helping you build competency and skill yourself. So these are just some of the things you might want to have in a college or a university campus. There are hundreds of other things, and the pitch is that, well, if you start with these, these are some of the big blocks. The small things are easier to do, of course. So the reason I sort of zoomed in and I zoomed into this part as well is because this lists so many more things, and I'll come back to these these lists a little later in our discussion. But I'm just trying to help you understand the very wide diversity of solutions that are required by people, and it's impossible for few companies to just be able to do all of it. I'm sure if there were 25, 30 other free software businesses, we could all collaborate based on the situation. We could all collaborate to offer various services to customers, and that would be a really powerful thing, because then we are not stretched thin to do everything ourselves. We can all do different things based on how free or busy we are, and we could charge whatever we think is reasonable, and we could help a lot of people, and it will be so much fun as well. So that's the reason I sort of zoomed into these ones. Okay, now let's look at, let's repeat the same question but in a different context. If my value system is that I want to run free software everywhere, then today my biggest challenge as a person would be that well, I need to access hardware, because all software runs on hardware, right? It could be a regular laptop or a computer like this, but then there is software inside everything. There is software inside a keyboard, there is software inside a wireless router, there is software inside a television, there is software inside sensors. I mean, there are software inside things which control LEDs like this, right? There is software all around us. Now, if I want every piece of software around me to be free, because I don't want anybody else to limit my ability to learn and do things on myself, and to be able to repair and those things, and to be able to extend them and hack on them. What do I do? What is the solution to that? Well, the solution is to build and liberate more hardware. Either you build hardware, which means you start from scratch and you fabricate hardware like this, or something like this, or like this. You fabricate hardware and you try to solve a problem. Or you take hardware like this, which you cannot easily manufacture, say a phone or a laptop or a router, or a Wi-Fi switch like this, and you liberate it. What I mean by liberation is that you take a piece of hardware which is not really designed to run free software, but it has the ability to run free software. I mean, if it has the ability to run software, it definitely has the ability to run free software, right? The challenge is whether we can do that ourselves or not. Because let's say the vendor who manufactures this router, they really don't have an interest in running free software in it, or they don't really want to give us a source code to the software they've put inside it. Fair enough. Don't do that. But at least let me put my own software in it, right? So the process of taking a piece of hardware, an off-the-shelf piece of hardware, and running your own software on it, running free software on it, that's the process of sort of liberating that hardware. So what I'm trying to say is that either we have only two options. Either we build our own hardware, we build something from scratch like this, or like this, where I build this by 3D printing the case and then buying all sorts of components and combining them. So we try to build things ourselves, or we try to take things that have the ability to run free software and we do that. We either build that software which can run on it, or if others have built that software, we use that software, we customize it, configure it, and get it to work for us, right? But it's about remembering this ethic that I want to run free software everywhere. Unless we ask for that, how will we get it, right? And a lot of times, we are not even mindful that there is software inside something and it's not free, and maybe the fact that it's not free and we can't change it or modify it, maybe that fact causes irritation to us. Maybe the product doesn't work the way it should work. Maybe the keyboard has a very bad mapping, and because we can't reprogram it, we have to put up with that key mapping, and we don't find that very joyful. Now, a lot of times we put up with it, but I'm talking about the converse. I'm saying, what if we don't put up with it? What if we don't give in to, what if we don't feel that there is nothing we can do about it? What if we actually sort of take that problem on its head and say, we're not going to, use this till we find a way of doing this by using free software. So if you keep persisting on that problem, you will either not use that product, or you will finally choose a product which does not deny this freedom to you, right? And well, that's one more thing, in your life, which is not restricting you or crippling you or tying you down, right? So this is a sort of a cluster I had built for a college lab. The idea being to show students that, look, everything that you need to do this work in this lab is right here on this box. I mean, this thing here, whatever. There are 16 computers and there is so much storage and networking. Now it's all there. So, what I'm trying to say is that being able to show the students that, look, everything is here and this is what it looks like, it might change the way they look at it. Otherwise, they might feel, look, servers or data centers or those sort of things are beyond us. We don't know how they work. We cannot know how they work. We cannot know how to build the skills it takes to build one, or to set up one, or to manage one, and so on. Fair enough, but you can start small. This is a representative model. If you can do this, you can do just about anything else. So I don't believe there is something that cannot be done with free software. I don't believe that we have to put up with somebody else defining what we can and cannot do. This laptop is not in production, It stopped production about 8-9 years back. But even today, if you wanted to change the wireless card in it, the manufacturer's BIOS does not let you do that. Now think of it like this: 10 years after that hardware stopped being in production, the manufacturer still exerts control on it, isn't it? Because they're not allowing you to change the wireless card and do exactly what you want. Now that's it's not just irritating, it's evil, you might say, or it's just so bad, it's unethical. Why should I, not be able to do what I want? What is the concept of ownership of this computer? If I say I own it, then I should be able to do what I want with it. If I cannot do what I want with it, then I'm still not the complete owner of that product, right? So I'm saying that if you come up with situations where you want to do something and then you get stopped and you see these walls coming up which don't let you go beyond, I think that's a very big red flag. The reason we can today change the BIOS, which enables it to change the wireless card, that is a symptom of the fact that some people did not give up. They did not put up with the fact that they cannot run free software on it, or they cannot run complete free software on it, or they cannot liberate that hardware as much as technically possible, right? So the product was not designed to run this firmware, but now if you can run this firmware, the manufacturer cannot control what you do with that hardware, right? Similarly with this piece of hardware and this piece of hardware and so many other things. So progress happens because some people refuse to put up with something, right? That someone could be us as well. Why do we have to put up with those things? Well, a lot of times that thought process starts with the consumer. It starts with the demand, and then supply could emerge. A lot of times it might start with supply as well. Well, we have to work on both these aspects. There could be times when there is a demand for something, but there is no one providing that, and that's a very sad thing because there's opportunity which is getting wasted. And there could be times wherein we have all these wonderful things, but no one cares about all these wonderful things, so no one wants to buy them, right? So, well, those are two extremes. Let's work on both these aspects. As people who care about free software, all of us could use this. And then once we use these things and once we are able to build and understand so many solutions, we will figure out where else these could be applied. And that could give rise to so many good business ideas as well, right? When I build something new, I usually test it out on myself for a long period of time. Because I'm trying to solve the problem for myself first, and I'm trying to understand the quality of the solution, whether it's making my life more difficult or easy, and to what degree is it making my life easy, and so on. So I feel that I should not just start offering a product or a service to someone unless I have been personally using it, and my life should depend on it before I can have somebody else bet their life on it, personally, or their organizations. So that is one way of. So when you experiment with so many numerous things, few of those could be things that you can build a business on. But so I think we should experiment a whole lot more, so that we can get good business ideas on the problem that we can potentially solve for others, and we can build businesses on those. Right? However, as you might understand by now, the most critical aspect of any business is selling, right? Finding paying customers. If I cannot, I might be good at what I do. I might have a product which is excellent, which works, which makes things easy for its users, all that. But if I can't sell it, if I can't find people who want to pay for it, I can't run my business, because there is no business happening. There is no transaction. There's no one paying me. Me having all those nice things is not enough. People have to know about it. People have to be able to access it. They have to be able to enter into a commercial transaction, so that maybe they can pay me or you for it, and that creates business, right? So So who is a paying customer? Anyone who's willing to pay money to get a specific value. They might want comfort, they might want to solve a problem quickly, they might want to solve a problem that's not yet solved, or there are so many reasons why they want something. So they know what a customer knows, what value they want, what problem they want solved, and that they are willing to pay for it. I rarely meet people who say that we're entitled to a solution and we're not going to pay for it. Everyone's ability to pay for a solution is different, and that is completely reasonable. But most of us also understand that if we want to solve a problem, we are going to have to pay for it. Now, payment is not just in terms of money. A lot of times we pay for something by the effort we put in, or by the time we spend on it, or in other ways. So the point is, the reason I'm talking about sales here is just because you can't just build something and expect people to come. I've done that so many times. It just doesn't work unless you can figure out how to sell. And selling has nothing to do with what you are trying to sell. What you're trying to sell, A, and the activity of selling is B. There does not need to be any connection between those. You have to sell. Anyone who runs a business has to be able to sell, and that differs, how they sell and where they sell and to whom, and all those things will change. But the fact remains that unless you are able to sell, unless you're actively able to solicit customers of whatever domain you're trying to work in, you really have no business. Business starts when the customer approaches you, or you approach a customer, and there is some confluence, there is some discussion there about what you have and what they want, right? So this is one thing. And I remarked earlier that when we are running a technology-based business, a free software business, or any type of technology business, we might be more excited about the technology aspects, being technical people maybe. But that itself is not sufficient to run a sustainable business. A lot of times we might have to develop skills to do other things. I might not like to go and send a courier, but if what I'm selling is a physical product, unless I go and courier it, the customer who's paid for it is not going to get it, right? If I don't like to go down to the courier place to send the courier because I feel it's a waste of my time, I have to find other ways of doing it, other cheaper ways of doing it, or other ways of doing it which are not as costly, or whatever else. So we have to cultivate and build those skills, the ability to work with people in a team, the ability to pitch your technical value to someone and explain it to them in business terms, the ability to write about what you do and how you do it, so that someone who is not technical could also read and understand it. So there are so many non-technical skills. Technology is just one significant part of our business, our work. Translating our work and its value to others, to lay people, to organizations, to decision makers who are going to make a decision to purchase something, those are partly technical skills, but they are other skills. So many things, so many skills like that. When you're running a business and your team grows, you have to be able to work with so many more people. Now you're not just managing your own time; you have to help others manage their own time as well, right? Because their time has a cost, a monetary cost. You have invited them to join your team so that you could all work together to do some more work, or you could do some work faster. But unless you're able to manage that process, unless you're able to or delegate that management of that process to someone else who's good at it, that process will suffer, and you might have the best people that you might ever think about working with you, but if you cannot work with them, if you don't know how to communicate with them or work with them, they might get frustrated and leave, and that's very sad and unfortunate, right? And I'm talking about this from my own experience. So I've had that situation a lot of times. So there are so many other things, and there is no way to sort of educate ourselves in advance. These are things that we have to learn on the job, and that's the fun part of it, but that is also the challenging part of it, right? Now let's look at another aspect, the supply and demand aspect. Do you think that more people would choose free software if there were more people selling services and solutions on free software? I think so. Let's go back a few slides. What if people sold a phone to you that had only free software in it, but it still offered a very good user experience to you? Do you think people would buy it? Well, when people choose which phone to buy, a lot of time they're not looking at how much freedom they're getting with the software which runs on that phone. They're looking at so many other aspects. How good is the camera or the battery backup or whatever else. I might look at only one fact, whether I can run my own OS on it or not, but everyone is not going to think like that. If you built a phone like that and gave it out to people and it did not, make it, the fact that it's powered by free software did not make it difficult for them to do certain things or anything, why would they not use it? Similarly, if people sold, all of us might be GNU Linux users. We might be using Debian or Arch Linux or Ubuntu or Fedora. And I'm sure we've all seen non-technical people also use a GNU Linux operating system. I've seen children use, operating systems. My daughter, she's been using Linux since she was very young. Now, and when people, work on a GNU Linux desktop, they don't really face any challenge. Today, desktops are very easy to use, whether you use Genome or KDE or whatever else. What stops people from pre-installing that sort of a free operating system on a computer before they give it out? Well, they might feel that people might not buy it. But if everyone sold Linux pre-installed on all their computers, well, maybe people would just use it because there is no real downside of using it, right? So if there was excess supply, the user base and the usage would ramp up as well, right? If the thing we are complaining about is that not enough people demand software freedom or free software on devices or in their organizations. Maybe the vendors they talk to don't pitch free software to them. Let's say I want to build a wireless network in my office, and then I call, I have a very large office, so probably I need 50 access points, and I call networking people to give me, quotations for it and solutions for it. If out of 10 vendors, only one vendor says that, look, I'm going to give you hardware which is going to be just like anyone else's, but the software on that hardware is going to be free, and there are all these other benefits you can get out of it. If there is only one person who's saying that and the other 9 people are not, maybe I might not pay attention to it. Maybe that person's message might get lost in the noise, right? But if 9 people were offering me a free OS on that wireless router, I would think that's a norm. I would think, okay, maybe all the software which runs on wireless routers, it comes like this with source code, with my ability to do whatever I want with it. Maybe I will not do that. I will continue to pay them to do it, but nevertheless, that option is there with me. So I think a significant reason why people are not able to choose free software in organizations specifically is because not enough people are selling it to them. And, there are 30 of us in this room, maybe 27, 28 of us. If each of us ran a business and if each of us offered services around free software, there would be so many more people pitching free software to organizations and customers of all sizes and in all sectors. And out of 28, businesses doing that, one day you might have 400 businesses doing that, and then 5,000 businesses doing that. It could become a norm. So things don't become a norm overnight. If all of us, a few of us, are going to start a business and we are going to choose free software, that's one decision to take. And every time someone takes a decision like that, it increases the supply, isn't it? So if Deeproot is a services company and we work with, we help organizations build just about any type of infrastructure using free software. If there were 50 other deep roots like that, deep root's own business proposition would be so much more attractive. Today, I'm saying this for everyone. Today, if you go and pitch something to someone, you are compared against proprietary software, and that's a very unfair comparison. That's comparing apples to oranges, right? That's not a fair comparison. If everyone was offering a solution based on free software, let's say someone was trying to build virtualization in their organization, and all the options they were considering were around the same piece of software, but so there is no difference in technically how something would run. The software is exactly the same. Now you could look at the varying abilities of the organizations. You could look at which organization has more capability or more experience, or we could look at so many other things, and that would be a very fair way of making a choice. So having more people compete in the market, having more people offer solutions of the same sort, I feel that encourages people to take decisions. It gives them the confidence that the decisions they are trying to take or about to take are not wrong. A lot of long back in the 80s, there was this notion that no one gets fired for buying IBM, that sort of a thing, because when people used to buy compatible computers, people would say that. So that's the mass market. You play it safe. You don't want to be the person who takes a divergent decision. But a lot of time that is also about existence of options and existence of supply, right? Similarly, it goes about skills. Companies might say, look, I can't develop my product on Linux or using free software tools because I can't find enough developers. That's not true. If they searched, they would find so many developers. I know there are so many developers who care who care enough about free software that they build considerable skills in it. So that's not true. But if every company which came to recruit from campuses asked such things, they asked about free software skills, colleges and students would naturally be encouraged to build those skills, right? Maybe people are not asking about those skills specifically or clearly, and that doesn't motivate a lot of students or developers to build those skills. But if there was enough supply, maybe there would be a lot more demand. So this is not this is not a fact. I'm just speculating here. This is a thought experiment. But we are all here today. We are assembled here today to discuss on the supply side, on the business side of it. So that's why I wanted to talk about this aspect of supply. There are a lot of opportunities in the market. I would, if anyone asks me whether they should run a free software business or not, I would always encourage them, because there are so many things that people are not currently doing with free software, that even all of us doing business with free software is just a small portion of the of the service provider market. The market is huge. The opportunities are several, and finally, people don't always take reasonable decisions. You go and meet someone and they like you and they understand the point you are making, and they might give you a chance. We've had a lot of large organizations take a bet on us when we were very small and young as a company, and they took that chance because they saw that they had nothing to lose, and if things worked, they had so much to gain. So their confidence in us supported our growth, supported our ability to take up greater challenges. At the same time, it gave them a huge benefit in terms of simplifying their business or helping them do their business with greater efficiency and so on. So the opportunities are several and diverse, and I would never say that don't look at free software because it's a very limited market. The market is huge. The entire world, the internet runs on free software. So the market is huge. What we want to do, how we want to do it, that's a separate thing. And finally, our discussion has been, when we say free software, discussion is about the software aspect of it. But I would want to pay similar attention to hardware, because unless we focus on hardware development or choosing the right hardware, we are going to very soon run out of places to run free software on, because software needs hardware to run. Unless we have that hardware, we are going to be incapable of running our software on it. So that is an equally important thing. That building hardware takes greater challenge, I feel. You can compile and test your software so easily. With hardware, you have to fabricate, and then it takes time to source components. But well, all that is also fun. Every challenge that you have to surmount is also fun. That's one of the reasons you run a business, isn't it? Because you like those challenges, you like solving problems, and there is nothing like having to solve a wide variety of problems when you're running a business. Everything is a problem basically on a daily basis. So I think hardware is an equally compelling frontier, and a lot of us should work on hardware as well, because again, it's about the supply part of it. If more of us could develop hardware ethically, hardware which does not compromise the privacy and security of our users because it uses proprietary software, we could change the conversation around these concepts of privacy and security. It's possible to do it. As free software advocates and activists, we know all those things. The supply side is weak here, and well, it's up to us, to pick up that mantle and work on it. So that is another thought I had. Finally, what are you going to work on? You've had a lot of discussion. Finally, what are we going to do? We're going to build a business, right? But how are we going to do it? What are we going to work on? Well, I'm going to list out 5 different or 6 different options. You can choose the problem you want to solve because you are more interested in solving those problems, and you can find customers for your solutions. That's one way of positioning your business. A second way is look at the problems that people have. Be on lookout, spot those problems, and then build products or provide services to solve those problems. If you notice that people in a specific industry or at home or in their lives, they have certain issues, you can build a product or a service to solve those issues. You could focus on a specific sector. Now, a lot of these are general in nature. The problems you work with could be across the board, right? Or you could also identify a specific sector, and you could study the requirements of that 1 or 2 sectors, and then you could build skills that you need to service those requirements, and then provide solutions which are very tailored to that sector. So that gives you cohesion, that gives you focus, and that's very essential a lot of times when you're building a business. Because if you're working with, say, one sector, let's say garment exporters, and then you're working with another sector which is auto parts. Auto parts manufacturer is not going to ask a garment exporter for a reference about a service provider, right? They might ask for a reference from someone who operates in a similar domain. So when you have customers all over the place, seeking referrals becomes a challenge at times. So being able to identify and focus on certain sectors could be a very important part of business. You could specialize and build very unique skills, use skills which are very difficult to find, skills around free software, of course, and then people would pay to have those skills. You could also look at things that irritate you, things that you feel are wrong because they're proprietary, and then you could fix that. Now, how you fix it is up to you. You could build hardware or software or the entire products. But finally, thing is about you have to build a business. So these are all the routes to doing this. This is what we want to do. What we do and how we arrive here, these are some of those options. And then don't forget something else. Like I like to say that, or you could read about it in so many essays about software engineering. Most of the software which is developed is not sold. It is custom software. It is software designed for a specific organization's needs, for a specific function of that organization also. And very large companies, they work on building such custom software. So nothing says that you cannot build those solutions or solve those problems using free software. You could, like I said earlier, we could solve anything, any problem using free software. So doing custom development using free software is also a very, very viable way of running a business. If your foundation is the free software movement and you understand these values, then those values will show up in the way you do business, in the way you choose your tools, in the way you deploy that software or the solution for your customer. So that will show up. Your value system will emerge from what you do, and that is the takeaway for having that value system and ethical framework in the first place. So don't forget these aspects, and this is not just about making a business. A lot of times we might not. There is a distinction between being a freelancer and being an entrepreneur. So we might not even want to build a business. We might be fine making a living which meets our ideological framework, right? So don't just think about it as a business. Business is one level of work. There's nothing wrong in making a reasonable living, doing what you care about and doing it all the time, right? So it's not just about the business work, it's about being able to. So to summarize, I feel none of these problems, there are a lot of solutions here. If you're curious, we can go into some of those later on. But none of them are solved fully or efficiently or elegantly or for enough number of people. I can tell you that. And, if you want to work on these or similar problems or something that we have tried to solve earlier, but we've not done a good job, or we tried and we met with some initial success and then we gave up. But then we still have some insight and experience in that domain. I would be, very glad to share that with you. So you can reach out if you want to work on something that you feel we might have worked on or we might have some experience with. I would be very glad to, share as much detail as I, can humanly can. Because then if that can serve as an input to you, that would mean that people have yet another way of deploying free software in their organizations or into their lives. So please feel free to reach out. And these are some of the websites that you could track. Deeproot.in is the website for our free software business. Mostly harmless.io is the website for what I'm trying to build in terms of liberated hardware. This is the online shop where the goal is that every possible product that you buy there would be accompanied with source code and documentation so that it respects you and you don't have to compromise. So these are my coordinates. You could mail me or we could chat. So this is what I had to share, and now we can discuss some of these points, or we could go into something that you feel needs more attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an interesting talk, Abbas. I think you have covered major points around free software and its business aspects. The forum is now open for questions and discussions. Participants can turn on the mic and ask your questions or share your thoughts about the talk or FOSS and business in general. Thank you.
So a lot of you have joined in the listen mode. If you click on that receiver icon on the bottom, the blue one, the second one, then you could actually disconnect your listen mode and connect in the mic mode, and then unmute yourself and ask your question verbally. Otherwise, you could, write your question in chat. that's another way. But I think we have time. Why don't you? It would be good if you can talk about if some of you have had some experience or face any challenges in how you build your business with free software. You could share those experiences also. I'm sure all of us would love to hear about others' experiences. So just disconnect yourself from listen mode and join in the mic mode once again. Please just unmute and speak up. Do that. So I generally judge the usefulness or the effectiveness of what I was talking about by the questions. So if no one's going to, if you're not going to have a discussion, then I would maybe I didn't make any good points. I would feel like that. So
I think they are a bit confused about the listen mode and the blue button in general. Maybe
no, you
I
could
think
just type it out in the chat.
yeah.
In fact, I could turn on multi-user whiteboard if you want. You can draw here, or you could actually write it here on the screen itself. Most welcome to do that.
If you have any question, you can just type that in the public chat.
So if you want to discuss any specific thing that is mentioned here, we could do that as well. You could just draw and point to this here or here. Whatever you feel you want to discuss.
Abbas, there's a Srini here.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Always we're curious about the competition you faced in your business. Was that competition effectively from the proprietary type of IT infrastructure solution providers, or were there any competition from the free software variety as well?
No. In fact, I would have, like I said earlier, the supply side is very weak, and when people are trying to prospect for solutions, they end up comparing proprietary solutions with free software solutions. So I would say 99% of the times we don't really face competition. It would be lovely to actually face competition on the same grounds and make a more impassioned pitch about what you do, and have the customers also understand so much more about this domain of free and open source software. Unfortunately, in almost all situations, the choice that the customers have is about whether to choose a proprietary software or a service, or to choose a self-hosted free software service or tool. Like if they want to build email for their organizations, their choices are between hosted email services from various mail providers, or proprietary software running on their own network, or a free software. I mean, of course, free software is always an option, but earlier there would be people who would provide setups on top of free software, but nowadays we don't see that as much. Similarly, when people want to build virtualization or clusters of virtualization servers in their organizations, the choices they have most often, and the most accessible choices they have, are all proprietary. So we first have to make them aware about free software tools, that they are good, that they can do a good job, and then we have to sometimes we give them we have to give them a demo as well to see how it works. And if that convinces them, then there is a business proposition. So it takes, from the time you get a requirement to the time you make a business pitch, that span can be very long, because if they don't understand what you're pitching for and whether that tool that you're trying to offer as a solution is competent or not, because they might have heard about various proprietary tools because they are popular and they are trending, or everyone talks about them. Not everyone talks about the free software tools that we are talking about. So we might talk about Nextcloud as a solution for sharing files or collaboration. We might talk about Proxmox as a way of building virtualization, and we might talk about our mail systems, or we might talk about building LDAP-based authentication solutions, and so on. People don't always talk in these terms. And similarly, when you're trying to analyze the cost, we will not charge them on a per user basis. That makes no sense. We'll help them size their hardware to support their user base, and then they can add as many users as they want, or as little users as they want. We have customers who have as many as 60,000 mailboxes on a single server, and then we have people who have just 20, 30 mailboxes as well. So our charges might differ because of the complexity we are managing, but they will not differ radically, right? And again, what we charge customers will depend on their ability to pay as well. So competition is missing, I would say, and I think that's one of the most critical aspects of being relevant as a business in front of organizational customers, at least, where there are only when people feel there are only when their mindset is that this is the only way to solve a problem, then opening up their minds, opening up their mind to solving the problem in other ways. I mean, you have to first do advocacy, and then you can try to pitch for a solution. It takes considerably more effort, but I think we have to play our parts.
But Abbas, again, the question is, when you say that you have to convince customers, actually, isn't there a better path for the free software business professional, because they already have something available with them to showcase? Whereas in the other case of proprietary solution providers, of course, some of the product owners, they might have products, but others, they have to do it from scratch or run through some screenshots and show the solution. So isn't that an advantage for the free software business?
No, not really. Even if there is a free software tool, you would need to install it and set it up before you can actually use it. Like I said earlier, no one got fired for buying IBM. That sort of argument in the 80s and 90s. It's the same thing now. If you take a safe bet, if you don't try to manage your own email, if you just go with one or two popular email providers, you really can't go wrong, right? So, it's just that their marketing presence and their corporate presence is such, and that their brand strength is such that someone taking a decision is not going to look at it qualitatively. They're going to make a judgment based on other factors. Maybe price or whatever else. Maybe they actually care about privacy. But so it's not that proprietary. Today, most proprietary tools can be evaluated, and I mean, that's up to various vendors to provide evaluation. But A significant aspect is mainstream popularity of various proprietary products. If you were trying to build a IP telephony setup for your organization with voice over IP and so on, how would you build it, right? Now, voice over IP has always been a free software Linux domain for tens of years. There is nothing that you cannot do on your own or with free software. Yet, not everyone will think like that, because if they start searching around for a telephony solution, what they might get free software, but they might not be told that it's free software and so on. Anyways, free software does have strength. I could install and show someone Nextcloud very easily. That's not the point. Is that sufficient to convince them? Sometimes it is, but not always. Not always. Because the lock-in to proprietary products can also be very severe, right? Unless you exit the email service provider, which is also providing you a shared drive to store your files and share them in your organization, you might not want to replace just the file sharing part, right? Or and so on. So the arguments would differ from one organization to other, but a lot of times, in fact, for example, during COVID, schools were closed, colleges were closed, and they were trying to find solutions to run their classes online. Now we are all using Big Blue Button. It is such a competent method for teaching and learning, isn't it? Yet, when we pitched this solution to tuition classes, to schools, to colleges, to training centers, they had their own way of looking at it. A lot of times it was the cost aspect, that look, if we have to run our own service, and it's going to cost us so much more money than just using something else. That might be true sometimes. There's nothing that says that a free software solution will immediately in the short run save you money. That's not the point. It gives you something else. That is the point. So it was a tough sell to offer Big Blue Button. Now we can demonstrate this easily. We can sell Big Blue Button using Big Blue Button itself. What is the confusion here? But whether people will be able to make a choice because of the quality of the solution and how good this free software tool is, that's a second thing. So free software wins in so many ways here, in terms of quality, in terms of ease of use, in terms of ubiquity, all those things, but not in cost maybe. So ironically, that's a challenge. Sometimes proprietary software can be cheaper in terms of cost. Okay, so Sudesh is asking about, sorry, yeah.
No, I was just mentioning about the point from Sudesh. Yeah, please go.
Yeah. So Sudesh, how can we provide trust in a solution with a client that a product is capable to maintain? So trust is something, think of it like this. When you have a proprietary software, you say your software is secure, your software is good, it is secure, it's not vulnerable to people trying to crack it and so on. How do people know that what you're claiming is indeed true or not, right? As a proprietary software vendor, you can only make these claims, or you can rely on certification or confirmation of those claims by third parties. Since you cannot share your source code, or you do not share your source code, there is no way for anyone else to independently verify the truth of your claims, right? So trust should be verifiable, right? Unless I can verify a claim that you're making, on what basis do I trust you? That is the question. If I cannot verify it, then I have to take your word for it. And again, if I don't know you, how do I just take your word for it, right? So, your question is, how do we help clients to trust our solutions? Well, by being able to demonstrate that if you are claiming something, you can actually show it. That if you are not claiming something, you can show that as well, and that it is you have the ability to extend the software and customize it and integrate it, and so on. So that takes some effort. Yes, it does take effort. If a client or a customer has an existing vendor relationship, then maybe they have a reason to trust that vendor. So if you go in to pitch something to that customer, they might not just trust you, right? And hence they might put you to a test. They might want you to demonstrate your capability. They might want you to suppose they're so, how do you get people to trust you? How do you get people to buy the fact that you're capable of something? What I would do is I would search for some problem they are having with their existing solution. So if they are using some proprietary tool and they have a problem with it which they can't fix, or they cannot get past that problem, and if we can demonstrate that we can help them get past that problem, now that means we are capable of solving a problem that they cannot solve right now, right? And that could sort of endear us to that customer, right? And when that endears us to that customer, they might be able to trust our ability, and they might be able to believe the pitch we are trying to make, right? So, well, you have to put in that effort. Or if you put in that effort already and you've built that reputation, then that reputation will speak of you. Initially, we all start on a blank slate, so none of us have those reputations, and then we have to build it, piece by piece and step by step. And then once you do it, let's say you do it for one customer, and then they could give you referrals to others, and that referral will enable the next customer to it could enable the next customer to trust you. So this would be the challenge any business would face, not just a free software business. Anyone would have the same challenge. That's what I said. The challenges of a free software business are not any different from other businesses. In fact, the good thing is you have the ability to not just make a claim, but also to prove it. No one else has that ability. So that is actually something that works in our favor.
Mubash was typing something. Yeah.
You could speak up, Mukesh.
What are the technical challenges that you faced for building a better softwares or hardwares? Because technologies are updating day by day.
Well, technology, things change, but they don't change that much. Just because because some new things that get developed become more fashionable and get a lot of attention in the media, that does not mean that something else is not relevant anymore. Today, most people don't have to install an operating system to use it. And hence, not everyone understands what the role of kernels and bootloaders, right? So is that a problem? It can be a problem tomorrow if there are not enough people who still install operating systems and who understand how bootloaders work, because then tomorrow someone has to fix those, right? Somebody has to fix those. It's not that everybody can rely on an operating system which is installed and managed by someone else. So technical challenges are always there, and there are two aspects of it. One is your own bias. My bias could be that I like Ruby, I don't like Python. Maybe I'm neutral about PHP. So if I have to program something, I should be able to program it using Ruby. Now, if I get stuck with that notion, then maybe I cannot. Then the technical challenge could be high, because I might not be able to become very productive with that solution with Ruby, or I could have my capability could be as much as just writing bash scripts and not more than that. And if one day I have to do something else, then I have to learn. So one aspect is that there's nothing wrong in being opinionated, but then you also have to be open-minded enough Secondly, there is some learning that's happening every day. Literally, there is some learning that happens every day, both on hardware and software. And the way to remain, competitive, and the way to remain relevant is to figure out what is interesting to you, and build, explore, and build your skills, so that, I mean, that's not relevance in terms of how others might judge you. When I talk about relevance, I'm trying to say that if I don't update my skills and my ability to continuously help customers with their challenges, I become ineffective in helping them address their challenges, and hence they don't really have a reason to do business with us, with our organization or with anyone else. So being able to understand what's happening, being able to remain clued in, that is very important. And then you still have to, be able to judge. You can't learn everything. You only have so much time. Well, as you get older, you have other responsibilities in life, so you might not be able to spend as much time learning anyway, right? So you have to pick and choose, and a lot of times that pick and choosing might limit what you can do. So it might make you a specialist in certain domains, and hence it limits your expertise in other domains, which is okay. But that's something you have to accept then, right? So, for example, in Deeproot, I manage only certain aspects of the business. I have my colleague Shivanand. He manages, most of the customer-facing aspects of our business, in terms of being able to pitch our solutions to customers, or even prospect for new organizations and customers to do business with, and so on. I can't do that. That's a limit of my ability. I can't do that. He can do that because he's good at it, right? So similarly, there are other people in our organization. So the reason you work with so many people is because they have a lot of time. They have complementary skills and attitudes and interests, and well, as an organization, you could stay competent by dividing the skills that the organization possesses across multiple members in the team, right? One person cannot be good at everything, and hence you have different people in the organization who are good at different things, right? And of course, then everyone in the organization has the same responsibility to continue discovering things, continuing to understand how the world is changing, how something could be done to serve a need that's going to emerge tomorrow. You could bet on that today, and if you can prepare for it, then when that need arises, you are in a better position to address it, right? So again, this is something which is true for any business, not just a free software business. Now, in terms of hardware, again, there are the same challenges. Understanding hardware is, I feel, far more difficult than just understanding software. Experimenting with hardware is also a bit more difficult. So again, you have to choose those domains where you want to work and build your expertise in, and which is why the ecosystem is extremely wide and open, and there is space for all of us and so many more of us there. So yeah.
Any more questions from the participants? I think we are done with the questions, Abbas.
All right, sure. So I'll just share my contact information.
Yeah, sure.
And so please feel free to write in, and would be glad to help out anyone. Like I said earlier, if you want to work on anything that you think we might have worked with, or that we might have encountered in the past, I would be personally glad to help out. Who needs help.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and efforts, Abbas.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
Thank you all the participants for your participation and support. As mentioned earlier, we are planning to continue the series in the upcoming months, so requesting all your cooperation. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Abbas, for the
Yeah.
time spent. We look
Thank you.
forward to be associated in a lot more revenues. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend.
Yeah, everyone. Same to you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.